Hello. Man alive, what a beautiful week it has been. Boy, I'll tell you what, I completed a lot of outdoor projects this week, and the weather has been my best friend. All that aside, I was responding to comments on the YouTube the other day, and there was one in particular that stuck with me. It had to do with how long Onpassive had been quote unquote close to beta testing soft launch and ultimately to opening to the public. I can see where this would be a stressing concern for anybody that's not privy to some good information. And by good, I'm talking about relative information, relevant, that has the right context. And I truly believe this was the case with the person that made the comment on the YouTube. Like many of us, I just don't think there was enough information and context in what he knew to understand exactly what was going on. And sometimes as our brains try to fill in the missing pieces, it gets a bit frustrating. If you're a founder and you haven't seen the Q&A from last week, the link's in the back office, and it's also got a very nicely written summary by founder Marina Favit. So I suggest you take a peek at that. But I believe the bottom line for Onpassive, other than having a heart, is that we are not dictated by profitability or just by pure financial concept. We are constantly shifting with circumstances. And to that end, Mr. Mufara and his anti-corruption coalition, I love that, right, are working their fingers to the bone to provide a done-for-you life solution in the midst of a great many difficulties. That includes COVID. I'm talking about that Covida Loca has been wreaking havoc on our staff scheduling workload, so we've had to shift a bit. As you should know, Mr. Mufara has taken some pretty drastic, albeit very appropriate measures to protect our very committed, hardworking staff. Measures, I might add, that are becoming more and more commonplace as businesses create workarounds for the challenges that we're facing. Onpassive is not the only business having to shift operationally. As founders, we can be proud because Onpassive is among those setting the standard. I mean, as companies respond to COVID-19, business leaders who back moral statements with practical action are going to stand out. Protecting employees and redeploying their capabilities to meet the immediate needs build a more loyal workforce, and it also fosters public goodwill while helping to fight the global crisis. This is certainly evident in the shift we've made with Onpassive's Hyderabad hub. Furthermore, as limits on our go-to crisis management tools are met, it's more apparent governments and healthcare institutions can't do it alone, that the private sector has got to get more involved. As such, Onpassive is one of the first responders in this sense because of its global effort for initiating consciousness practices and creating moral businesses, and will no doubt continue to set that trend. Conscious leadership is a revolutionary and impactful leadership technique implemented by some of today's most effective leaders. It's a real thing, and it's a huge shift from quote-unquote business as usual. The concept was first outlined and made popular by the book The 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership. In short, it's the process by which a leader becomes radically responsible, self-aware, and focuses on building a culture of we rather than a culture of me. And that describes Mr. Ash Mufara to a T. And as he has said, Onpassive is humanizing business. Because of that, he'll be seen as a conscious global leader that's providing not only answers, but providing much-needed solutions during one of the most economically turbulent times in history. So the world at large will come to Onpassive for solutions to challenges and consensus in areas beyond online marketing. The greatest business leaders play the long game to serve in times of great need, times like these. In this way, they offer people security, stability as a remedy for panic and fear. The best, which includes Mr. Mufara and the whole of the Onpassive team, will advance the interests of others, knowing that it makes us all better off. Nobel Prize winner Wangari Maathai said, quote, "In the course of history, there comes a time when humanity is called to shift to a new level of consciousness to reach a higher moral ground, a time when we have to shed our fear and give hope to each other." Unquote. I wholeheartedly believe that it was true then, and that is certainly true now. But, getting back to the issue, a lot of folks may be thinking, since we've used the word soon and imminent for a while, that we would have already seen the price increase and gone into beta testing. But that's not necessarily the case. We need to understand there are a lot of things that have happened and continue to happen. And with what we're trying to do, and with a company this size, there are a great many things happening that we can't control and that can take a lot longer than what we expected. I'm just saying, shift happens. The big ones affect our trajectory and they push out the launch date. Other than COVID, most of the big ones that I'm referring to that affected the timeline of Onpassive anyway were the results of the C-suite changing their minds as momentum grew and they decided to add more things to Onpassive. And that is as it should be. Things like writing software from scratch, developing our own AI, keeping everything 100% in-house, adding product after product, and then making them standalone businesses, automation, integration, changing locations, opening new offices in more countries, and even the staffing dynamics, all of which have served to secure our future. Understandably, they also slow down the launch. Still, I'd rather have them done than not, and I believe that Onpassive, Mr. Mufara in particular, has done a phenomenal job. Like I've said, shift happens. But getting back on topic, the question is a question of time. Specifically, how long should it take to start a company and launch its product to the public? For instance, if I were to open an internet business with a conferencing platform equal to or surpassing the capabilities of Zoom, how long is a reasonable time to develop the platform from the ground up and launch it publicly? Let's keep in mind Zoom was founded in 2011, launched its software in 2013, had a $1 billion valuation in 2017, and it became profitable in 2019. So, if we're not worried about actually making money, let's assume it to be reasonable to expect a minimum of 2 years between the time the company was founded and the time it launched its software. And just so we can get a sense of what's going on with Onpassive, let's use an economy to scale timeline for multiple businesses. By this, I simply mean that if one company or product takes 2 years, then a second company should take less time because we're using resources from the first to help build the second. We're not recreating the wheel, so to speak. So instead of 2 companies taking 4 years, let's cut the time for the second company by 50%. Now, instead of 2 companies, let's say we got 3 and we cut the time for the third company by 50%. Let's do it again for a fourth standalone capable company. So, the first company takes 2 years, the second one takes 1 year, the third one takes 6 months, and the fourth takes us 3 months. Now, to take it to an extreme, let's assume the time needed for each additional company, company 5 and beyond, is a month and a half. And then that's also going to push the launch date out by that many months. Well, personally, I don't know if my scenario is anywhere near realistic. I seriously doubt it. But for this illustration, it will certainly give the listener the benefit of the doubt. So, since GoFounders was launched and or registered in the fourth quarter of 2018, let's look at where we are relative to launch as a company at the 3-year mark, which will happen fourth quarter of 2021. If Onpassive were launching one product, one standalone company, we would be 1 year behind schedule. But if we're launching 5 products, 5 companies able to stand on their own, based on our timeline, Onpassive is set to launch right on track if we launch fourth quarter of this year. But if we've heard anything about Onpassive, we've heard that it has about 50 products created from scratch, and each one is a standalone company. So, using our ridiculously exaggerated economy to scale, our timeline says that it should take Onpassive 8 years and 9 months to launch. That means that we're already 5 years ahead of schedule. Actually, more than 5. And true to that, right now, there are a gazillion things going on that we will not see from our homes and probably are never going to hear about. But hold on, it gets a little better. How much more time would it take to integrate 50 companies so they seamlessly work together? That's got to be worth something, right? And let's not forget, they're automated via artificial intelligence, keeping in mind that the AI and the digital infrastructure we're using was all written from the ground up too. It's brand new and cutting edge. Users have to be paid, right? So there's a financial structure in place that is so revolutionary, there's nothing in use currently that can even be compared to it. There's more we could talk about, but I'm not going to get into that because if you haven't gotten the picture by now, you never will. But we need to know, as Mr. Mufara has said, that our desire to make a difference, to have an impact, is genuine and sincere, and to that end, we have such an immense value that people will be pulled into our orbit. They will come for our value. This is to say, metaphorically, whether folks are looking for big game or just a serving a rabbit stew, we will be the hunted, not the hunter. We won't have to look for people. And it's not just people. The marketing and advertising companies are going to come to us too. It's inevitable. We will simply tell the world that we've arrived, in a great big voice, by the way, and let the magic happen for all those that respond. Mr. Mufara and his team are brilliant marketers, and they're getting better by the day. With what Onpassive has right now, we could easily open Onpassive to the world, but considering the magnitude of what we're doing, we are way ahead of schedule, even by the ridiculous timeline that I've used here. I think it's fair to say that we can let Onpassive take care of Onpassive. So relax a little. If you're a founder, then you're all set. Stay the course, keep the faith, and go do at least one good thing a day for your company and for your future. Now, if you're an onlooker, keep on looking. At some point, you're going to join. It'll be a lot better for you if you do it before we open publicly. Spend some time, though, really learning what we're about. And when you're ready, get back with the person that invited you to see this and join that team. If you haven't been invited, then consider this your invitation because I would love to have you in our team. Just click the link in the description box below. But regardless of when you join or whatever it is that you decide to do, we wish blessing upon blessing for you and your entire family.